that's what is a like when I as a like I don't think when I walk on stage they're judging my tits. You know what I mean? I think they're looking at everything
No, they're
else. I don't
not.
think.
Okay, no, fair.
I mean,
They're not, but it does.
having a chest helps keep the feminine body in check. Which
I think
I feel
that
like
boobs do matter. I do think that boobs matter. I'll say this, that it's not that women are being judged by the size of their breasts, but we're all being judged by how does our silhouette, how does our overall shape fit into what we believe is the ideal version of this physique that we're supposed to see.
All right, so welcome to Bodybuilders Amateur Hour. So we got Caroline and our special guest Scott McNally. Welcome, big guy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I am super happy that you're here too, but also actually, to be honest, a little nervous because, dude, I've been following you and your podcast for years. So to have you on this right now is like absolutely just kind of like a little surreal. So thanks for taking the time out of your day, because I know you're super busy, to come on a little Bodybuilders Amateur Hour. So thank you.
You guys have like the best name, first of all. You nailed it with the title. It's so perfect, it's so fitting, and it's funny at the same time. So yeah, and it's my pleasure. You know, this is the stuff I love doing, and I especially am excited to be on this show because I know we're going to talk like some real bodybuilding today.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of times when people have me on shows, they want to talk about like setting up a podcast and the business of like trying to make money as a bodybuilder, right, trying to promote and stuff like that. But the reality is everything I do, it's all because my goal has always been to become as educated as possible and get as many different perspectives as possible. And really that's what our shows are about. You know, Think Big Bodybuilding Media. My goal isn't to just have one person on there sharing their ideas. I want to have as many people on there as we can, all sharing their own experiences, their own thoughts, their own ideas, so that the listener, instead of just being spoon-fed what they're supposed to believe, they can then take all of these ideas and then draw their own conclusions versus just being told what to do. You know, so this is the stuff that I really love, is actually getting to talk bodybuilding.
That's amazing. And like, that's exactly what I was hoping and trying to design this podcast around but going and looking towards all of the, like, bring it into the amateur's eyes. Like, I know there's a lot of podcasts, like even you have one that's really like scientific based, and you're talking using a lot of terms that I have to go Google, and that's totally okay, right? But what this is kind of like, I feel it's almost like those books, you know, Bodybuilding for Dummies. You're gonna drop it down, drop it down a bit, and like so everyone knows what we're talking about. Especially when you're coming into the first time, this might be you're looking at competing. You're thinking about doing your first show, or maybe you're in your first prep, and this is kind of like a guideline almost to giving that information out, or well, at least what we have to offer and what our experiences as amateurs. So it's like,
I love that.
Yeah. So
basically, if you're sailing in my boat.
Exactly. And Caroline, that's pretty much another one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on as a guest today and a future host or host of this show, because you've done one show and this is like pure like amateur hour here. This is great. And this is another little, to be able to take someone at base level and go through all of the steps and help get you to where you want to be to accomplish your goals, just like everybody else that's going to be watching this, right? Even I know there's like myself, I'm really quite experienced, and my other co-host Alex, which is not here today, he's also very experienced, but no matter what, we're always learning something. Even if we are in the pros, we're always learning.
Yeah, I was bummed I didn't get to meet Alex today. I was looking forward to that. I was creeping on his Instagram. The dude has some incredible muscle. Like, he has a hell of a physique. He has shape and size that I never had. And I definitely could see him turning pro with that. How long has he competed for?
First, he's been competing now for probably 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
He was with me at the Arnold Amateurs. He was battling it out for his pro card for the overall.
Okay. Yeah. He got first in his class.
Yeah.
I saw, right?
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you guys were there.
Yeah, incredible dude.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. So I was looking forward to meeting him. And Caroline, I creeped on your Instagram as well. You're coming along. So that you've done your first show now, right?
Yes, that was done. I competed in May with the IFBB, a little bit of a smaller organization. I wanted to kind of start small, where it was my first show. I wanted to just kind of dip my toes in a little bit, but also take it extremely seriously at the same time. So to see how far I could go with that. And the first show went off amazing.
People were asking her why she was even there. She was like, "This is not. Why are you coming to the show?"
Yeah, they thought
that's great. Yeah, and I could see.
What's that?
I'm sorry. What?
Oh no, they were like, "Are you going for your pro card?" I was like, "No, but that's very flattering."
I was gonna say that you have some. I mean, how long have you been training for? First of all,
this is funny.
Well, about 10 months.
Okay.
Yeah, not very long. I already went into it having quite a bit of muscle to start with. I just had a lot of body fat to lose.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I've known females who have spent years trying to grow delts like you have. Like girls, some girls, they have a real difficult time growing capped delts. And I mean, with your frame, I'll be excited to see, like your shoulder to waist ratio, all that. I'll be excited to see where you take this, because it looks like you're having a heck of a start.
Yeah.
I can't wait either. We were just talking about that before you came on. I'll be starting my bulk in September, and I'm super excited to see what kind of monster I can turn myself into.
I love hearing that. It's so that's so relieving and so refreshing to hear. Especially when especially when it comes to like female training. Just like it's you don't hear that very often, and it's quite nice to hear someone wanting to really push and try to grow.
Yeah. A lot of my friends, women, they're scared to lift weights. They're scared that, I don't know what they're scared of. They always like, I want to have a snatched toned body. I'm like, you're not going to get that with cardio. You got to like lift some weights, and everything will just sit on top of your muscle and give you the body that you're looking for.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, there's always that thing of like, I'm afraid of getting too big. Right. I remember when I was a kid, my dad's friend who lifted, after about a year of me training, he and I used to have that joke of people saying, oh, I'm afraid to get too big. And we would say, don't worry, you're not gonna. Don't worry about it. Gonna. You have to try real hard,
that's just not gonna happen.
You just accidentally get too big in the gym. Oh, oops, I guess I got a little bit too muscular. That would be one hell of a story.
It's like,
yeah.
Oops.
That's all right. Hey, that's a great segue. Nice one. We'll go into we have quite a few questions here. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get through them all, but Scott, we could just jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Awesome. Yes. Okay.
I love questions.
Yeah. So good genetics, bad genetics. How do we tell them apart when we're starting? It's like, and like looking good in the off season, is that a genetic gift, or it's like I sit around lean around 170, but as soon as I get into the 190s, it looks like I don't even train anymore. Is that normal? When I'm trying to bulk, I want to look. When I try to bulk, I want to look good, but it just doesn't happen.
That's a fun one. Yeah, I felt like for me competing, when I started, I was a middleweight, and when I got absolutely peeled, as long as I was in a tank top, like I looked big. The second I put a t-shirt on, I looked small. Like nobody would even know I lifted, other than I had veins in my arms.
Right.
And I call it like you guys watch The Simpsons. Do you remember Ned Flanders?
Yes.
Ned Flanders
100%. Yeah. It's just the Ned Flanders effect.
Like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
I had that going on, but I think nowadays that people are much more consumed with looking good all the time, more so than when I started, because back when I was a kid, we didn't have social media like we do today.
Yeah.
And we used to just stay covered up. Like, you just tried to not look at yourself. You would just put on, whatever size shirt you wore, you put a size or two bigger than that on. So I was walking around in like 2X and 3X at the time. And, you just didn't look at yourself. And I always thought of that as like being like a monk, being like being focused on doing the work that needed to be done, and then like unveiling the statue at the end. You know what I mean? Versus now it's tough because people want to walk around looking like that. And I do think that people are cutting themselves short.
Yeah.
There are those guys that have those genetics. And I mean, I feel like that, Josh, you and I may be sitting with one of those people right now that has, I know you might not have the chance, the ability to stay super lean, but you've got the genetics to grow muscle, and
I agree.
I think she does. It's one of those things, but a lot of times, most of us, we don't have the genetics to stay super lean year round. And if you're trying to, put yourself in a surplus and grow muscle, it's a lot to ask of yourself to like still keep your abs at the same time,
Right. Yeah.
I wish I could have kept my abs. They were like definitely the first thing to go. I see girls walk around with them all the time. They look fabulous. I'm like, how do they do that? And I would never dare ask them, because maybe it is their genetics, or maybe they just eat really clean. I don't know. It's however they decide to live their life. I like to eat food. So.
But also, are they progressing when they have their abs? Are they growing?
That's true.
Are you the one that's going to come back next year and be bigger and better and beat them?
That's true. I know a lot of people that like to go to the shows every 6 months, and I'm like, if you do a show every 6 months, I'm like trying to work out the math in my head for like how many weeks you need to set aside to cut properly, especially if you're natural. You need to almost start early. I felt we started me early. Whether we do it again that way, I don't know. But we started like 16, 17 weeks out, like for the cut for my show. And, if I was doing that, if it's 17 weeks out, and then, then you were bulking before, and that I feel like, how much muscle building time did you actually have before you had to start leaning out for your next show? I'd have to sit that down to work that math out.
Yeah.
Scott, what would you say? It's a good time period. So
a good time period between shows. I think it depends on where you're at. If you're new, I almost think that you need a year of grow time after that first show, if your goal is to get bigger.
Right.
If you show up and, okay, I'll take, for instance, this guy that I just helped at NPC Universe. And interesting story too. Guy's name is Nick, and I met him about like 6 years ago, and he was like, "Hey, can you get me into shape? I want to see my abs. I want to look ripped." And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that, man." And so we diet, we get him in shape. And I said, "Dude, you got some crazy bicep peaks." And cool. I just wonder, Nick, if we were to, spend some time putting on some muscle, what if we were to do this again, but next time you did a contest, right? And this is like 6 years ago. And fast forward to yesterday, and he's in Masters Classic now, and he's close to the top of his weight cap, and he missed his pro card by one placing, which we'd always competed in bodybuilding. No! So that's the other crazy thing. Yeah. So we always competed in bodybuilding as a light heavyweight. He's 5'9", so he's not going to be like the biggest guy, right? Because his cap is 199, right? So the guys that he's competing against, they're all 199, but they're like a foot shorter than him. You know what I'm saying? They're completely massive. So how tall is Alex, by the way?
Yeah, same, 5'9", 5'10", I think in that range.
Oh, so he must be a heavy then.
Huge in person.
Yeah,
is he a heavy?
Yeah, I think he's heavyweight. He's between light heavy.
He'd have to be then.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd have to be a heavy then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just looking at his physique, but yeah, so with him, he missed the show. He missed the pro card by one placing, and he did really well overall. He doesn't necessarily need to take a bunch of time off and retool. He's toward the top end of his weight class. He's proven that he could win with the package he has. And he's at like the top end of what he wants to do. So does he need to take a year off? No. We're actually going to do Masters Nationals. And if that doesn't work, we're going to shut it down and we're going to come back next year early. But he's not, we'll work on some small details, but he doesn't have to grow a ton. Now, if you need to grow a lot of muscle, I would say take a year off. And the way I used to do it is if I were to compete in a spring show this year, then right after that show was over, I'd go into my off season and then I would compete in a fall show the following year. And that would give me ballpark 10, 11 months off, because then I would be able to go into my off season and then do another cut and do a show that was, several months later. So I'd say every 18 months would be a good time frame to compete. People don't want that. People want the instant gratification, and I get it. Especially if you're a non-competitor and then you become a competitor, and then now all of a sudden it's like you've created a new identity around it, and this is who you are, and it's been 7 months since your show and you're still posting pictures from the show. It's like you just want more stuff, so you want to do it again and do it again. You want to do it sooner.
Dude, I've been there. I'm that person. I've been that person, man.
Yeah.
I get it. It's addicting and it's hard.
I'm gonna spend some time in the gym myself.
You're the smart one.
In May, I'm probably where I was just gonna enjoy the summer, still lifting, still eating, still all the fun stuff, but definitely gonna give myself a good 11 to 12 months to put some size on. Because I gotta get if I can get my legs as wide as like my back. Oh yeah, baby, I really want to be unstoppable because I am also very short. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm only like 5 foot nothing.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, I just look a lot bigger, which I'll use that to my advantage.
Yeah, you look taller based off of your shapes. I would have assumed that you were taller than that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's even like that live. Like when I go on stage and I walk out, I just look like this mini person, and all the lights and the tan and everything, and then you start flexing, and you just look so much bigger. Like, what is going on? Yeah. I eat lots of spinach, pulling my Popeye.
That. So that was my thoughts. Did we cover that one, Josh, or was there more to it?
Just like
part to it?
The other part was like the good genetics. Is there a way to tell, like, if you're like good bad genetics? Like
you'll know, and you'll know quick. You know what I'm saying? If you have good genetics, because you'll just be successful. Period. And I think there's levels of good genetics, and what does it mean? What are good genetics? Good genetics, I think, could be a lot of things.
What is that to you, or to me, or to like? It's different. I think.
I think it could mean like muscle, right? How much muscle can you gain? That's genetics. How lean? Like how easy is it to get lean? If you're enhanced, how well do you respond to compounds? That's another set of genetics. And then maybe even the mental side of things. Are you wired to do this, or are you somebody who's going to crack under the pressure of a diet?
There's a lot that goes into this, and then it's really, and you don't know, I guess, until you start really putting the work into it. You won't know until you got to try.
Yeah.
Right.
And regardless of all that, for anybody new, I'd say just do it anyway, whether you think you've got the genetics or not. Just do it. Because you're still gonna be better off at the end with yourself as an individual anyway.
I agree. As long as I think the key is appreciate the experience and compete against yourself. I've seen people who are just doing it to win. And I think that could be a negative thing then, right? If you're just doing it to win, there's going to be somebody who's better than you. And if you're basing your self-worth off of your placing, you're going to eventually, even if you have good genetics, you're eventually going to probably be let down.
Yeah.
Versus if you compete against yourself, like you said, Caroline, just do it for you. And no matter what, like, man, you probably learned so much that you didn't even expect you were going to learn from doing that first show, didn't you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was saying it was a massive bite that I didn't realize I was taking. I was like, I really want to try bodybuilding. And they were like, okay, are you sure you're ready for this and this and this and this? And I think they were, at the time I was like, they're just trying to scare me. You're just trying to scare me. And then I did it, and I was like, oh, like this is like really, really, really real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It brings out like a whole different side, right? It, I find for me and a lot of other people I know for the first time is the mental aspect of bodybuilding is one of the hardest parts, right? When you get finding like to digging through the parts where you want to quit, where you want to give up, saying no to social activities and outings, going out but like turning down the food that's in front of you or being offered, like the mental strength that takes, and especially when no one's around and no one's watching you, and and then still saying no to temptations, and then getting up and going to the gym, like that's where like the strength, the true mental power really has to shine through.
100%.
I remember there.
Sorry, I feel like starting life is constant. I feel like life, when you start bodybuilding, it's trying to sabotage you every step of the way.
It feels like that. It's like
it feels like it's trying to sabotage you.
I was competing one year. I was competing, and there was another guy competing with me in the same weight category, and he would leave little Kit Kats and Snicker bars all around the gym on the machines that I would be using.
No,
I'd do a set, I'd go walk away, talk to somebody, come back, and there would be a Reese's cup sitting on my chair. And I was so mad. I threw that Reese's cup so hard against the wall. But then you do it all the time. It was just like, I was like, that son of a bitch.
That's crazy.
It's like, but it's just.
I remember there was one year, and this was even like far in. I remember being in a grocery store and standing in the aisle, and there was like this wafer cookie that had fallen out of a package. And it wasn't even a whole cookie. It was like a half a cookie, and it was on the floor. And I looked down at that cookie, and now, mind you, I was like really dieted, right? And just for a minute, I thought to myself, I mean, I know that nobody ate that. You can tell it just like fell out of a package, is broken. Yeah. If I'm not going to do it, but if I were to eat that right now, it would taste just as good as if it came out of the package. I'm 100% certain of that.
That's so funny. When you're hungry, when you're willing to scrounge scraps off the ground. That's what you
get. Yeah. You're like, it's like, I won't care what anybody thinks. You just
that chewed gum over there is looking pretty good. Yeah. Looks like it might have some flavor still in there.
Oh, gross. But
I really suffered on my first diet. Like I will use that word. I suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And the next diet, I was more focused on my girlfriend. So my first diet, I got laid off for my job, and I knew it was coming. The business was like closing down. And at the time I was like, man, this is going to be a bonus. It's going to be like, I'm like a pro bodybuilder because I'm just going to collect unemployment for those last 3 months, and it's going to be the bomb.
That's awesome.
And that's what I did. But it sucked because then I had nothing to do except for sit on the couch and think about bodybuilding and think about how hungry I was, versus the next year I had a job again. And my girlfriend thought it was such a cool thing I did. She wanted to do it too. So she's competing. So I'm worried about her getting into shape. And then she did a show 2 weeks before me. And before you know it, her show was over. And I was like, oh crap, I only have 2 weeks left. And I was peeled. Like I was the leanest, like way leaner than the first show. And I felt so much better. I looked so much better. You know what it was? I had gotten outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about my problems the whole time. But that first diet, man, I just suffered, just sitting there wallowing in my own hunger. And then a couple of years later, I met Dr. Scott Stevenson. And he told me, he was like, because I would use that word, like, you really got to suffer to get into shape. Right. And, I saw it as like this torture that you endure. And he was like, listen, man, he was like, the word suffering is generally something that is being done to you, something that you can't control. This is something that you can control. This is something that you choose to do, and you can stop it at any time. So is it suffering if you want to do it? He was like, it may be uncomfortable. You can experience discomfort without it being. And from there, it changed my perspective for the future. And I've never suffered a day in a prep since then.
I think that's actually a great way, honestly. I think getting out of your own head, sounds like you just told everyone an epiphany. Now we're just going to wait for it to click.
Let it just sink in.
That's an epiphany that you have. And if you don't have that epiphany, you're just going to the whole process is just going to suck. When it shouldn't.
Yeah.
My easiest prep ever was for my biggest competition, right? Just the one, just because I wasn't in my head, I wasn't stressed, right? I was just doing it because I had no expectations. I was just doing it going into the Arnold's for fun. I wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah.
I was just going in for fun. I was like, I'm just going to train. I'm going to just diet and I'm going to have fun and enjoy it. And then lo and behold, I'm battling for first place in my weight class at the Arnold's. So then I was just like, this was amazing. It was like the easiest prep ever because I was not stressed. There was I had no pressure on myself because we always put the most pressure on ourselves. No one else really cares.
Sure.
Except for our coaches. They care a bit, but we're always the ones that, stress our own selves out. But yeah. So I think it comes down to that, just the stress levels, and especially when your first show, though, going back to what you were saying, because I think it's always we suffer so much and we put so much on us because we don't really. It's the first time. We don't know what to expect, right? And we don't know what's normal. We don't know how if what we're feeling is what we're supposed to be feeling. Is this, do we supposed to be feeling this hungry? Do I supposed to be feeling nauseous when I'm doing a set? Do I supposed to wake up in the morning or halfway through the night, wanting to eat my own arm off? Is that normal? I don't know. It's but then we start eventually learning the more and more that we do. So
there's a nice line. There's a fine line, I find.
So
it's hard to get to know your body.
And I think, Scott, how long did it take you to kind of realize your body is and how it responds to your training and your supplements and your food? Was it a lot of shows, or were you pretty responsive and you could have a lot of self-awareness right away? Or did it take a few over time?
So I was lucky in that I fast-tracked my my knowledge about my body by hiring a coach for my first prep. That helped me a ton, because I had already studied a lot. I had already dieted myself before, but I knew going into a show, I wanted to take it to the next level, and I hired a coach. And actually, he didn't charge me anything. There were very few coaches as a profession back then. In fact, I was on the RX Muscle, or before that, the MD message board, and I was talking about a show that was in Illinois, and I was asking a question and saying I was doing a show in Detroit. And some other guy was on there. He was like, "Oh, what show are you doing in Detroit?" And I was like, this show, John Simmons Classic. And he was like, "Well, hey, if you want to come out and meet me at Powerhouse Farmington Hills, I'll take a look at you." So thanks to bodybuilding, the next day, I met a random man in a locker room of a gym and took my clothes off in front of him.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It was only in bodybuilding. In bodybuilding, Yes. And anyway, he helped me. He gave me a diet, and he became a really good lifelong friend, as a matter of fact. But it was by that second show that I really figured it out. And I'll be honest, at the second show, I didn't follow his diet. I took more food out, and I'm not saying people should do that because I coach for a living now, and I wouldn't want people to do that. But I took more food out, and I got myself absolutely peeled. It was awesome. I was only a middleweight, but it was cool to see that I could do that, because that was my goal. I knew hey, I'm not going to be the biggest guy,
right?
But
might as well be the leanest.
I want to be a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be the leanest.
And so
and most
that was my
right?
thing. Yeah,
I
that was
love
my thing. I
that.
was like, I want to be the leanest guy up there, you know, and I know that I'll get respect if I can do that. So that part I had down. The growing part took me longer. In fact, that's a lifelong
Uh,
thing for me,
yeah.
you know, and I think I've finally figured it out. But unfortunately, I developed a major illness 2 years ago, and I'm not able to train the way man, it was so good. Like I had all these great things were happening with training. I had built my own home gym,
That
and
is amazing,
Which
by the
is
way.
things were clicking.
sick, but yeah, very, very nice. I was drooling over that for sure. I was like, Kenzie, look at his home gym.
It's
And he
like,
was
yeah,
like, I
Oh,
want
you
to
saw
have
that? You
yeah.
saw
Yeah,
that
no, it
video?
was great.
So, well, thank you,
I showed my
thank you.
wife. I
Well,
was
so I
like,
built that gym.
"Oh, go ahead."
It's
Oh,
got
good.
everything you could possibly want.
Yeah.
Everything. I love that a lot of it's
Well,
recycled stuff from old gyms.
oh yeah, yeah. So I was cheaper that way too, you know. But anyway, I build my home gym, and it gave me the freedom to start experimenting. And I always had trouble with my back. And literally in 6 months, I was able to transform it in a way it had never looked before. And people were like, "Hey, are you going to compete again?" And at the time, I was like, up until then, I was like, yeah, I don't know, you know, I don't know if I ever will. And at this point, I thought to myself, you know what, if I can put on another 10 pounds of muscle, I will compete. And I was already like 10 pounds heavier than I had ever been before.
Oh, nice.
So I felt like if I can hit about 250, that was going to be the goal. And if I could do that, then I would compete. And I was on my way there, and unfortunately things didn't work out for me. So yeah, you know, I love training though, and I still get to live through helping other people. But it was just so close, you know what I mean? I had things figured out,
I can feel
but
the frustration.
whatever, it is what
Yeah.
it is, and who knows? Yeah, and who knows? You know, the game's not over yet. But
Not
regardless,
yet.
I'm always still competing against myself, and so you know, I'm doing what I can, and I still love the fact that I'm here and that I can train. You know,
Right.
but yeah, how about you, Josh? Are you a guy that's been similar with the diet? I imagine you've probably learned how to get yourself peeled.
Oh,
But what
so
about the size thing? What have you discovered with training?
uh, I can lose weight. It's like an unbelievably quick. It's
Okay,
for example, I had to pull cardio out 4 weeks out prior to the Arnold's. I did like it was like I was already there, right? I just would just maintenance
that's great,
by
man.
training. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I have like that as a genetic gift. So
Yeah.
I would say I have a genetic illness against gaining weight, probably. So
Well,
it would
blessing and
be
a curse. Depends on who you talk to.
right. Oh yeah, well exactly. Um, so I still haven't quite. Okay. Let's say I think I don't give myself enough rest periods. I am that guy that loves to be lean, and I like competing.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, the most growth I've had was during COVID when we were forced to not train, and all of
Okay.
our gyms shut down,
Really?
and we trained.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we're kind of connected here. We had keys to a couple gym. We had keys to like 2 gyms in the city, so we would go back and forth
Yeah.
to different gyms. And
Yep.
yeah, but we couldn't do it all the time. But long story short, during the COVID period is when I put on the most weight through like pure muscle. And also,
Okay.
I was
I was
on,
gonna ask you to get your name for that.
yeah, I was also on Dusty Hanshaw's programming. So that helped.
Oh, okay.
So he was coaching
Yeah.
me along the way as well. And so I think it's, how do I say, it's kind of like, and now that everything's back open again, I think the weight gain and like the muscle gain has slowed down a little bit. Because like competing season's back, and I've competed last year and I've competed this year, and I'm looking at doing it, jumping back on stage again in October.
Okay.
So I know, right?
The weight that you gained through COVID, did you maintain that? Have you,
Yeah,
you
I
back
believe
to what pre-COVID?
No, I think I'm holding it. It's been pretty steady. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even between 2022 and 23, between my two shows, there was a significant gain as well. I can definitely see the progress from the pictures. But when you're looking at, I'm still sitting in the middleweight. I'm at the very top of the middleweight now, right? I can't.
Yeah.
So for my next show that's coming up, I had to be really careful to not put a lot on because I don't want to be spilling over into like the lower end of the next class, right?
Though, I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's a weird jump going from middleweight to light heavy.
Yeah.
And I had been there. In fact, I lived there for a bunch of years. But if you can get up, like it might be crappy for a year or so, but if you can get up further and you can get up to like a 190, let's say a solid 190, so if the top end of middleweight is 176 for anybody who's new, then we're talking, what is that, 14 pounds that you would have to gain. That's a lot, but you could do that, man.
Yeah.
And it would take not competing for a minute, or it probably would take not competing for a minute. You could do that. But at the other end of the spectrum, man, if you're a guy that loves competing, because I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. If you're a guy that loves competing, then, if that's where your pleasure is, and you can accept not getting bigger and not being a bigger bodybuilder, then more power to you. Who's to say how you should have your bodybuilding experience? You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm
I
still
hope
like,
that made other people feel better. Sometimes these podcasts really do. You listen to what they have to say. You're like, well, okay, I feel like I'm in the right spot again. You feel like you're not like getting left behind.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's like, yeah, if this is where your comfort zone is and you feel like you're doing well, then that's awesome. And I know for me the top end of the middleweights, I'm locally and I guess internationally now because I'm doing really well.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Then.
So like
it would be hard. Yeah. It would be hard to, at a bigger show, to be a smaller light heavy. You know what I mean? It would be hard to be super successful at that. Yeah.
So
you could like kill it all day at the state level at like in the 190s or low 190s.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. But after this year is a good year and a half break. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Year and a half. That sounds great.
I think, yeah, that's the wife's plan. So
my mind's over here swimming, imagining what 10 pounds of more muscle would look like on my frame.
It'd be amazing.
You guys are like, oh yeah, take the time in. You could put like 14 pounds of muscle on. Yeah, you can do it. And I'm like thinking like, because I've never done it. I'm like, oh my God, 14 pounds of muscle. Like, be like, ugh, huge. You're crazy. Sorry,
you still have newbie gains to tap out too.
Oh,
you've got newbie gains to tap out. Who knows what'll happen with you?
Who knows? He'll give me a wider screen.
Give you a wider, yeah. You need a. We gotta enhance your screen here. Another question. Okay, here's a question. I competed recently. And my stage weight was 180, full and skinless. That's at least what some people are telling me. I'm 11 weeks post show and I'm running 250 test and I'm 184 pounds now with maybe 13% body fat. Is this normal or did I do something wrong for my post rebound? So it looks like he was 180 on stage and now he's 184 and heavy and holding body fat.
And I wonder, is this 250 test, is this like a cruise dose or is this a cycle? I assume it's a cycle. Or I assume it's
I would say he's stopped everything. Like all of his prep.
And he's just on
and now he probably quit everything that he was doing through prep and now he's back on to just 250 test.
You shouldn't lose anything.
So,
If
yeah.
he was 180 peeled, by the time that he finished the show and went out to eat with his family and had like too much pizza, he should be like 189. You know what I mean?
Right.
And drink a gallon of water. He should be like 189. So something isn't adding up. That said, I think that there's a lot of lore around the idea of the post show rebound. You know, I think that there is like a super compensation that does happen, but and you can't. I'll tell you what, man. I think you can gain muscle during a diet, and I know this is kind of going
Oh,
off tangent.
no, I agree. I
You
agree with
know,
that part. Yep.
in fact, I think I can pull this up for you guys. I have a picture here. This is a client, natural guy. Let me see if this works. Yeah, it's working. Look
Wow,
at that.
nice.
Hey.
This is a natural guy, and he's a men's physique competitor. And the left is before he competed. Okay.
Okay.
And then the right is like 7 weeks or 8 weeks after his show.
After.
So now this is a natural
Yep.
guy he wasn't like all geared up, making a bunch of, muscle gains through that. He was in a keto diet. In fact, I had to diet him like he has to diet really hard toward the end. Now, this is about an 18-week diet here, taken nice and slow. I would say that the angle isn't quite exactly the same, but you can see the difference. He gained muscle
Yes, he did.
in that process.
Quite a bit.
His shoulders
So
look fuller,
I think,
his chest looks fuller.
yeah, I agree. And I think that you can grow muscle while in a deficit, especially in an earlier stage of like in lower development. You know what I mean? If you're not like Jay Cutler probably wasn't doing growing between shows or growing into shows, you know what I mean, during the end. He was just so big. But I think for somebody like this guy, Vache, he could do that. And I think a lot of people could do that for a good chunk of time, just because you're getting everything in consistently. You're eating all your protein on time. You're getting a lot of protein. You're training hard because it's for the show. Everything's consistent. And I think that there is something to that. So normally I think that people will fill out more after the show, and it's muscle that they've accumulated during the prep. I've seen that now. And so all of this makes me question, or makes me more puzzled by this question. Do you know what I mean? Because 184
Especially right after.
a good amount.
Yeah, I've never really heard.
And this is how long?
About 11.
How long after the show was it?
He said 11 weeks after.
Huh.
So he's. Yeah.
I'd love to see pics.
Yeah, I didn't really get anything.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a bad thing that that's all he gained?
Well, I don't like it.
He said
but his body fat is up 13%. So he's going from he's probably going from 5 to 6% body fat on stage, up 13%. But
how's he measuring it?
Right?
Is he using?
Right.
Could some of that
God
be water?
knows.
Is he stepping on one of those in-body machines?
holding that holding that machine out in front of you, and I don't know. Yeah.
They're garbage.
Yeah.
They're great to give you somewhat of a baseline if you're just like a normal person, but when you're competing and you're trying to get accurate numbers, they're not very great. Yeah, because he could have just had a baggy pair of clothing on too. That'll misread for body fat.
Dude, yeah. I had Greg Doucette's laser eyes tell me I was 5% while I was holding that machine that was telling me I was 12. So I don't know what one. I'll believe Greg.
Yeah, my body scale tells me I'm 60% body fat.
Right.
What?
So
60%? I don't think so. Even when I was at my leanest, I think it went down to 54%. I was like, no.
Yeah,
okay. Might have to get up and turn my lights on. It's getting dark. 1 second.
Go for it.
But yeah, I would say pics. We need to see pics, and we need to know a lot more. Is he even eating now? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah. That's a real. Yeah. That was I'm not sure how things could just disappear like that so quickly, or the body would change so fast.
We're gonna
But
hope and pray that it was just you drank a lot of water and you got on a bad scale, and it's just screwing your head up. No good.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know they're doing their first competition in 2 weeks. I believe we have the NB Naturals that's coming up.
Okay.
The New Brunswick Naturals here, and can you give us any tips and tricks for peak week and the day of the competition? Any do's and don'ts backstage?
Caroline, go to it. You've had more recent experience than me.
Yeah, so natural, I'd probably say 2 weeks out from your show. That's usually, like, for me, my body like really likes fats in the sense of we really had to cut out my carbs to next to nothing 2 weeks out, and then of course the week out they were taken out completely. The carbs really hold and make you look really fluffy, hold on to the water. So I ate lots of vegetables and I was drinking lots of water in my peak week, like loads and loads and loads, but no rice, no potatoes, sweet potato, nothing like that. It was just like loads of vegetables. I had like natural diuretic vegetables like asparagus, and it was eating cucumber and stuff like that. I'd probably say a week out from your show, avoid working, avoid like strenuous things. Like, I feel like having someone to like help do some running around, like if you needed some odds and ends to go to the grocery store, like I feel like your peak week is a great time to just lay low, relax, do your last workouts and whatever else you have to do, and just make sure that your prep is really ready to go, because you're gonna feel like your brain has been removed from your body. You're like,
that's a great way to put it.
Oh yeah, like I think I said in my last one, I had old ladies with walkers was just doing circles around me, because you don't really have a whole lot in the tank. And then carbs like 3 days before are so good. You can increase them to start giving you some bulk back to your muscles, so you're not looking so flat. It's a tough one, because I've only got one show and I only really have one experience with it. And I think I overate a little bit the day of my show. Like I had 8 ounces of sweet potato. I feel like we could have dialed that back a little bit. And I definitely ate a little bit backstage, like rice cakes, just like dry carbs. Dry carbs are the way to go. No, and also if you're natural and you're backstage and you're talking carbs, stay away from the sugar, stay away from the Kit Kats and the you'll see a lot of junk food back there and people eating it. Just, you went so long without it, just stay away from it. It's going to make you feel like complete trash. I feel like, at least I would be worried about it doing that to me. I had honey and peanut butter and stuff like that, more natural sugars.
That's a good tip. That you see people with all sorts of junk food.
I've seen so much stuff back there, man. Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like they were just looking forward to having a party back there.
Right.
Like that's what this whole diet was about, so that they could get together and eat pizza.
I've been to shows where they would order pizzas and bring it backstage.
Yeah.
And like, what are you people doing? And it was mostly
that's not even the weirdest one. That, to me, that's like, I mean, they're just like, they almost can't wait to have it. My thing was liquor. People are drinking. When you said party, that just brought back all the memories. There was people drinking backstage, like taking shots. And I was like, why are they drinking? Like, I thought, like, with your low body fat and you're dehydrated.
There's a particular reason for that.
They say it helps you dehydrate because you're, or something. I think that's what they told me. But liquor also thins out your blood. So don't you want to get a good pump, or does it not thin? Does that not matter? I'm curious on that. I would never drink liquor before getting on the stage. I can see why it works, but I can see why it could contradict your goal.
I've tried it in my first few shows when I was like just starting, because I was seeing everybody else do it, and we would do Fireball. And
Okay.
my last time I did it, I would stepped out on stage and I hit a side tricep and I almost fell over. So I decided not to do that anymore because it started to hit me a little bit. And I was like, oh, maybe I had one too many, and maybe two was at my body weight at the time too. My body weight, it didn't take me much.
And your level of hydration.
Yeah. You know? So I was just like, oh God.
That's where I'm at. It seems scary.
I honestly didn't. I honestly didn't really notice much of a difference at all, and probably.
So, alcohol does contain carbs, and it will fill you. Like, you will get a pump from it. Like, you'll get veiny from, like, if you're really dry and you drink like a little bit of wine, or you take like one shot, that people will do that to get a better pump, basically enhance their look. But I think that people are what it sounds like people are mostly doing is just using it as an excuse to just drink. You know what I mean? So it is seated in something that has been done in bodybuilding, like back to Arnold's days. And it can work, but I've never personally used it with any of my clients. I mean, part of it, I'm in recovery, so I don't drink, so it's like not even something that's in my mind. Like, I'm gonna think about drinking backstage, but I haven't done it personally, but I have seen it done, and I have seen it work too. But I think it's going to be like tiny moderation. I'll if I can, I got a different direction to go.
Yes,
and it's. I'm going to say this: be in shape. I don't know if this person has a coach, right? I'm going to assume that they already do. I'm going to assume that the food is taken care of. Like all that stuff is nailed. I don't want to tell you anything with that because I don't even know what they need to do. But I would say that enjoy yourself, because you never know when this sport is going to be taken away from you. And even if this is your first show, God forbid something could happen, something could change in your life. Heck, what you enjoy doing might change by the next year. And this might be your only opportunity to have this experience. And it goes by so quickly.
So fast.
Like when you get all this time, right, Josh? All this time you practice posing and you're doing the diet for 10, 12, 20 weeks. And it's all going to come down to like literally 2 minutes of one day. And so you have to remember it's about the experience that leads up to that. It's about going to the show. It's about the experience of being there and being part of it, because it's something that few people really will ever have the chance to experience. And you can't promise yourself that you will be able to do it again, no matter how confident you are, because we don't know what life is going to bring us. So have fun. That would be my advice to this person.
I love that advice. I second that advice.
Yeah. And tears. That's a good one.
It's the truth, though.
It is the truth.
You never know, man.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, you never know. Like you said,
if you can have gratitude too, like that gratitude is what keeps you plugged in and keeps your attitude right, through a prep. Right. And if I have clients that are struggling, I always and it works every time, as cheesy as it sounds. I'll ask them to write a gratitude list. I'll say, hey, come up with a list and write it down, whether it be like on your phone or on a piece of paper. Write down today 5 things that you are grateful for about bodybuilding today. And when you do that, it changes your perspective. And once again, you're getting outside of yourself. Yep. You know what I mean? You're not focusing on your problems. You're thinking about like, hey, I have a supportive significant other who probably doesn't give a crap whether I do this show or not, but they're putting up with me going through this and putting up with my moods. I've got the finances to do this. Bodybuilding isn't cheap. You could go right down a list. And when you put all those things together, it's hard to be in a bad mood, It
really is.
Yeah, I love that.
I have a friend that's also doing the naturals in 2 weeks. And he's in the tunnel. He's in the zone, right? He's in the gym, head down, grinding it out, sweating. It's his first show. It's his first one. He's like just giving it his all. And every now and then I'll walk by and I will pull him out of that tunnel and be like, be in the moment, man. I'm like, this is going by so fast. Just take a breath. you can see he's just like, he's an intense dude. And I'll just take a breath, look at yourself, and be in the moment, because 4 or 5 weeks from now, this is not going to be like, this is going to change. You won't. So enjoy this ride. Don't wish the time away. You know, it might suck right now, but don't wish this away, because you're going to want it back eventually.
I'm glad that you're there for him.
And that takes
and I tell him to, and I'm going to be back there with him backstage. So the podcast,
nice.
The podcast, we're sponsoring part of the show. So
cool,
which is really cool. And we're going to have a little bit of an event going on at the show. So
nice.
Yeah, so super fun.
Make that one.
I know you should. But, so we're going to be back there, and we're going to step back and try to get him to be a little bit. I find people are not really present when they're there. They're just wanting to get in on stage, do the thing, get out, and it just goes by. You just got to really be present in the moment. Take that time to enjoy where you are and what you've accomplished.
You guys are so far east. I'm just looking at New Brunswick right now.
That's where the show is.
Taking place. You guys are so far. That is so far. I've never been that far east in Canada before.
We actually live further down in Halifax. New Brunswick is
that's right.
The province over. We're actually in Nova Scotia right now, but
okay.
So if you want to go to the East Coast, definitely.
You're even further east.
Yeah, if you want to come all the way to the east, come to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Just because, New Brunswick is a bit of an armpit, but we love you, New Brunswick, because you hold great shit.
Yeah, we have. To be honest, I have to give a shout out to the promoter, Heather. She does the Atlantics. She does the East Coast. All the shows are all the big shows in the East Coast, and she's phenomenal, dude. I've been to a lot of shows, but I've never been to shows like she puts on. It's not a bodybuilding show. It's like a fucking spectacle. There's
no kidding.
Yeah, the light shows are amazing. She would have pyrotechnics if we were allowed. There was if I could find a recording of, we had the Gladiators that just passed. It was probably one of the coolest shows that I've ever been in my life. It tops I would say the staging by far tops Arnold's and the Olympia. The look of it was just so cool.
You're kidding me. That's so cool that she puts that together.
It's it is a lot of work, and it's if I can find some videos or some pictures, I'll send them to you. It's sick.
I feel like it's so special on stage, looking your best, and they've got flashing lights, and they've got all the beautiful backgrounds. I would feel super professional. I would love that.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because when you're, especially in the amateurs, and when you're just coming up and you're spending a couple $100 per class, and you step on stage with house lighting and maybe a banner behind you, where's all that money going? Right. With someone that's putting on a good show, it's you don't feel as bad spending as much. So
it's all about the show.
Right. All right.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, we got we got a lot of questions, but we won't. We won't run through them all.
Okay.
Let's try.
Let's try.
I'm up for whatever you guys want to do.
Okay. What should I be doing backstage for the first competition to optimize my chances of doing well? I've been seeing, should I be laying on my back with my feet up or drinking honey? I've seen people doing that in videos before. Or also, should I be putting on a pump spray? The stuff that warms your skin up to make your veins come out. Does it actually work?
What do you do, Josh? Like, let me ask you
Yeah.
this: like, what are the things, you know? Because you and I both, we've probably done a bunch of things
Yes.
that we've looked back at and we're like, you know what, that really didn't change anything.
Right.
You know, my skin just burns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I feel dizzy. You know, there's a lot of stuff like that. What are the things that you would say? Is there anything? First of all, I would say they are few. Like, it's very few things. You know what I mean? Like the big one is just be in shape, right?
Right. Big one is like, 100%. If you're in shape, you got nothing to worry about. I also putting your feet up is great. It's a nice way to relax. You're not walking around and people really aren't bothering you and coming by. Yeah. But after you put your feet down, you stand up, you're pumping up all the veins and everything that you've just or all the blood rushes back to your legs, and it eventually will just disappear. Unless you're putting your feet down and running right to the stage, it's probably not making a heck of a lot of difference. But I find when
there's supposed to be, the idea is that it's easier to get blood to flow into your legs than it is to flow out.
Right.
So if you're on your feet for 10 hours, you know, you're going to hold more fluid in your legs because gravity is going to pull it down, you know, and your body's going to pump blood down there. But overall, once again, I agree with you, man. I think that for the most part, I will tell people, like, hey, try to stay off your feet as much as possible. And if you can elevate your feet above your heart, I think it can only help. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's like,
but it's not going to make you.
It's like, oh, you didn't.
Yeah, that guy didn't lay down. Guy didn't lay down long enough.
Right.
We're going to mark him down. He's not going to. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. It's so close, man. You lost the show. You should have laid down longer. Right. It's probably not going to be that kind of a thing.
Scott Stevenson has a thing that he's talked about in his book, Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach. So this is a thing. All right. So this is different. So it's called head down tilt. So if you sleep with a head down tilt, it will create a diuretic effect. Have you ever heard of this one?
No.
Never. What?
So he'll actually, he'll bring cinder blocks to a show, and he'll put them he'll take them to the hotel, and he'll put them under the bed posts so that his bed is on an angle. There's science behind this. There's studies with, like, they started seeing this with astronauts, that if something about with astronauts, that they were dropping water and they didn't know why, and it had to do with the gravity. And if you're at a 6% grade, that you will have a diuresis from that alone if you're there long enough. So keeping your feet elevated, there is something to it. Right. Whether it's going to make a difference before the show, I don't know. But if you sleep that way the night before the show, and he does that, it will scientifically create a drying diuresis effect.
Dude,
the more you know.
The hotels are going to be pissed at you.
Right?
Don't forget your protractor. Make sure you're at the 6 degrees.
People are going to be packing cinder blocks now at all the local shows around here.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't need
I've never tried it,
but hey,
you could experiment with it. You could even do it like in an off season. You know what I mean?
Just monitor your weight there's usually a normal weight fluctuation every night, right? So you probably take your average and then see if it increases or decreases, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if my wife would mind that. Maybe.
It's like, hon, we're going to do an experiment.
The couch.
Cinder block the couch.
I want to be a little leaner, you know?
Oh, she may be. And going back to the heating oils, I used stuff once that smelled like cinnamon hearts. And
okay,
it was like all it did, I think, was make me sticky. And that was it. I don't know if it felt warm and tingly, then it just made me sticky. I don't think it did anything. I think Pro-Tan sold it on their website when we used to tan ourselves back in the day when it was we have everyone be all gloved up and tanning each other backstage, and now we have Now we're not allowed to do that. But we would all buy our Pro Tan. I'd get Dream Tan, and then we'd spray each other with like our Cinnamon Heart pump spray.
Wow. Sounds
Oh
so
yeah,
special.
it was very bodybuilding is a very bonding sport.
It
You
is.
get
It's
to
It
trauma
really is.
bonding.
Yeah.
yeah, you get to really
It's
know
the real
your
bonding.
yeah, you get to really know your other athletes quite well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It felt neat, smelled good, but I don't think it did anything.
Yeah.
I have a hard
So
time believing products like that work. I work in an industry where I sell skincare products and work with certain products. A lot of that stuff sometimes, well, I don't know about plump. I don't know anything about the plumping agents, but I feel like sometimes you got to use things on a regular basis for them to work. I feel like if you're just using it that one
Uh,
time, I would have a hard time believing. It just seems more like a money scam to me. But I'm also just a skeptic on stuff.
yeah.
Like the liquor. I was skeptical until you're like, well, it could do something. I'm like, oh, okay, I will believe you. I trust your opinion.
yeah, yeah, very good. Um,
Next.
yeah. So Scott, you're a coach, and if you were to program an enhanced athlete versus a natural athlete, is there anything different for like a training style? Would you be like considering
Training
different rep
style.
ranges, weights, like different types of?
That's a good question. I feel like, okay, so I generally would start somebody out with a pretty generic plan, meaning like we would maybe like I like to do push pull legs a lot. And we may start with that, and let's say they're training 4 days a week on this push pull leg split. How they respond to it would determine how we adjusted it. And if they're on gear, we may adjust it differently than if they were natural, meaning maybe they can handle more while they're on cycle. That said, I don't intentionally like program like, okay, you're going on cycle, so we're going to add an extra day
Right.
or anything like that. It's more of a, just like with the diet, it's more of a responsive change. How is he doing? Is he able to handle this amount of training? Does he need more time off? Is he progressing? Is this working? And then we would adjust. Kind of, yeah. So it's really hard to say, but I guess I'll say that no, I would not, because I'm gonna start out with everybody the same. Because some guy, like, just because you're enhanced doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be able to handle a ton more.
Oh, for sure.
You may be able to train harder, right? And if you train harder, then you're going to maybe require even more recovery time. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I agree with that for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't see a huge difference. Yeah, I don't know. But see how you're responding. You know what I mean? See how you're responding, and see if you're progressing. Because I do think that being able to progress is critical, in some way. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that like you have to have added another plate to the
Right.
bar. Progressing can mean that progressing can simply mean that your technique was better. Yeah, that I was able to handle the same amount of weight with, like, I was able to wield it with better control. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, that in itself, to me, you've progressed. In fact, when I was talking about my own training earlier, I really wanted to get good with the dumbbell bench press. And it was an exercise. Bench press was something I never was good at. Like, it was an exercise that I always sucked at. And part of it was I had some serious nagging bicep tendon issues. And so pressing would irritate that. And so I was really
Same.
careful with that. And yeah, okay.
Same.
And so anyway, I said to myself one day, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm in my 40s. And if I'm ever going to get strong at this movement, if I'm ever get like, and my thought was, if I want to grow, I need to be strong. The stronger the muscle is, the bigger it can be. So I thought, if I'm ever going to get good at this movement, I need to really focus on it. So I started working with the dumbbell bench press, because I could put dumbbells in my basement. I got
Right.
dumbbells up to 150 pounds,
That's awesome.
ready to go. And I got into it, and I had this set that I did with the 110s, and I felt like I killed it. It was actually when I was visiting Ron. This was like 2019. This was 2019 actually, so it was before the shutdowns and stuff. And I was at West Coast Iron, and my then girlfriend, not even fiance at the time, shot the video for me. I was like, I want to see a video of this. And then I posted it, and this guy who I respect commented, and he said, yeah, that looks really good, man. So are you just like trying to work on your lockout there?
Like, what?
He's like, because you're only hitting the top half. You're only hitting the top half of the rep. Is that like what you're trying to do? You're trying to work on your lockout there? And I was like, that son of a bitch. I got so angry. I got mad, like pissed, right? And then a few days later, I don't even remember how I got to this story, but I'm telling it.
Yeah, go for it.
A few days later, I thought to myself, well, you know what? This guy, his name is Big Dave Smith, and he's somebody I'd known for years. Back in like the RX Muscle days, they had like the Bros versus Pros contest.
Oh yeah, I remember
he was
that.
One of the bros that would show up. So Dave Smith won the squat contest. Like he did some crazy number of squats. This dude is incredibly strong and a really big dude. And I messaged him and I was like, well, what do you mean by that, man? I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first read your message, it really pissed me off because he's telling me I'm only doing half reps, and he explained to me what I needed to do, which was get that full range of motion. And so anyway, I retooled the movement completely. And from there, I had to like go back to like the 50s to relearn how to go all the way down and touch my chest, and I began to start from the chest, and I got up to being my ultimate strongest by relearning the technique, was the long story short.
Right.
I can't remember for the life of me how this ties into what we were just talking about, though. I gotta be honest.
Oh my gosh, we were talking about. Oh my gosh, now I'm having a brain fart on what we were talking about, because I was literally trying to keep that. Basically progression, like how, like what is proper progression, and
thank you.
Yeah. And I think you had proper progression,
Caroline.
but you scaled back and worked on your form and get that proper expansion and contraction. Sometimes I see people over there lifting crazy heavy. They're like doing these crazy lat pull downs, but their form is super duper off. They're leaning too far back, or they're almost shrugging it, and they're using their biceps. They're not using their lats at all to pull the bar down. And then I'm like, you adjust their form, and then they can't lift the weight they were just lifting. They got to take like 20 pounds off.
They'll be like, fuck this. And then they go back to the way that they're doing it because they hurt their ego.
Yeah, they get upset. You got to be like at the right time to hear information.
Yeah.
But I think that, Scott, you're
really
good. You're a better man for it, for taking it. You're like, of course, it gets you pissed off. But then you're like, wait a minute, I respect this guy, and I want to be better. So you're going to take all the advice or any feedback you can get to be better.
Yeah, and it was one of the most important moments for me in training, and it was from there that I really started to change a lot of other things too, and really look at how I activated muscles. But I remember what I was going to say. Thank you, Caroline, because you got me back on track. So for about a year and a half, I went from the 110-pound dumbbell press to the 115s. Okay. That was how much that's how long the progression I made in a year period of time. But I did that, and I felt like I was progressing through that whole year without even touching another weight. And what I did was I just broke up my phone and videoed it, and I watched my sets, and I was like, am I really getting 12 perfect reps with this? Or could I have given a little bit more? And maybe I went a little extreme with that. But by the end, man, when I went up to the 120s after that, I wasn't scared at all, because I owned those 115s with like everything in me. You know what I mean? It's like there was never a chance that I was going to get injured from this, because I had spent so much time. And we get wrapped up in thinking that progression is a number, but really progression is the weight that you're lifting. And I was lifting more each one of those workouts. But so yeah, the key is progression, and as long as you're able to progress, you're growing. I don't care whether you're on gear or off gear. So I'm going to watch you, see if you're progressing, and if you are, then we're probably going to leave things as they are. And if you're not, then we're going to have to reevaluate, steroids or otherwise.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Amazing.
Sorry it took so
that
long
was
to
amazing.
get to that.
Great story.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Couple more here. If you have another minute or two.
Sure, of course.
Someone wants to know how and if you can run an oral only cycle. And I was like, I've been asked. They're like, I'm terrified of needles. Can I run an oral only cycle? I'm like,
I don't
Caroline, go for it.
I don't know.
I was like,
I don't know. I say stay away from the needles because I don't like them either. Ugh. But oral, any that I wish I had more insight. I'm actually really glad that we're talking about this because I feel like I need to understand steroids. I feel like it's an important. I feel like if you're going to be competing natural, you got to know about the other side too. You can't just like not like eyes. Close your ears, close your eyes about to the other side of everything. But I don't know what a proper oral cycle for that stuff would be. So
I wasn't.
I don't know. Just as long as it ends in dome, maybe a word you can't pronounce, and dome should be fine.
I would say it depends on the situation. But so if this person is saying, if this is, first of all, if this is a male,
I believe
especially,
so, yeah.
Okay. And if it depends on his goals, really, can you run an oral cycle? Absolutely, you can. There's no question about it. My first cycle was an oral cycle. Now, what are your goals going to be? If you want to continue to run gear long term, it's not going to be as good of an option. Oral steroids, in order for them to work in your body, they have to get broken down by your liver, and that creates a lot more stress on your liver. In bodybuilding, that stress is kind of overstated, I think, to an extent. A lot of these drugs are used as medications that are taken long term, and even though these people are getting their livers monitored, that's risk to reward. It's working out for people for months or longer. Now that with some of these drugs, but that said, if you want to be a bodybuilder and you want to grow an incredible amount of muscle, doing so using steroids, eventually you're going to want to move to an injectable. That the reality is that they're going to be safer, flat out. That like basically we're kind of going all the way back to the real basics here, I guess.
Yeah,
but
that's what it's about.
The first thought is
this is great for me too to listen in on for this kind. I don't know. This is great.
So my first cycle was D-ball only, and I used 15 milligrams, and it was 4 weeks long, right? And I gained like 20 pounds, and I kept 10 pounds. Now, keep in mind, that's a small dose.
It's pretty tiny.
That's a tiny dose. Then I moved to injectables. But here's the thing, that over time, as you get bigger, you're going to need to you're going to want to run more gear over time. That 15 milligrams would have only taken me so far. So I'm not as worried about you running one oral steroid cycle. There are issues that you could get from that. We have to look at, number one, let's just talk about what's going to happen. It's going to, over time, you're going to shut down your own natural testosterone production. So you would have to keep that cycle on the shorter side,
Mm-hmm.
But then the long term, if this is the way you're going to live your bodybuilding year in, year out, relying on oral steroids, next thought is going to be like, okay, my next cycle, I want to take more, or I want to stack it, or I want to extend this cycle. And now we're still dealing with just orals. They're going to be toxic on your liver, yes, and they're going to be also toxic on your cholesterol, versus an injectable doesn't have to deal with those things. And I'm not saying that injectables are healthy, but you're going to be able to mitigate a lot of the health issues you could get by just relying on orals. If you use an oral, like really our place for orals in steroid use is going to be for males as an icing on the cake.
Right.
So maybe you're using a little bit of oral to kickstart the cycle.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe you're going to kickstart your cycle with it, or maybe you're going to finish your prep with some Winstrol, something like that. But for the bulkier cycle, you're going to be relying on an injectable, and it's just going to be overall long-term health-wise safer. Not to mention you can use testosterone, which once you begin a steroid, your natural testosterone production stops, or it'll decline and eventually stop. And you don't want to have to deal with that for 12 weeks. Believe me, if you're 8 weeks into a cycle and your testosterone has stopped producing, and you don't have any testosterone, you're not going to feel good. Basically,
it's pretty.
You're not gonna perform. Yeah.
It sounds terrifying to me. I'm not even a man, and that's scary. I mean, that sounds scary to have that stop. Out of curiosity, just a random question. Will you start off a small dose and then you increase over time? Why do you increase over time? Do you basically metabolize it and the same original dose just doesn't, like your body, it's just like, meh, that doesn't affect me anymore?
I think it's a twofold thing. I think number one, people get greedy. So they're like, hey, if 25 milligrams worked really good, then 50 is going to work even better. People will say that. And over time, let's say that somebody starts using gear and they're 180 pounds, right? And they're running a low dose cycle. My thought is use the least amount to get a good effect, right? So if you can use the least amount and get a good effect, then we can make some progress. And at a certain point, we're going to tap out on that. And that's when it's time to up the dose, because over time, maybe that dose would help you get to 205, 10 pounds or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's all you need. Everybody's going to be unique in that way. Like Dusty Hanshaw has talked about, his first cycle was a very small cycle smaller than a lot of women use. And he grew fantastically with it, where another guy might need to take a lot more to get that same effect. So really it comes down to, that's where genetics come in kind of, and that's where people try to make up for their genetics by taking more, to compete with the guys that have good genetics. And that only lasts so long. You can only do that for so long before it catches up with you. But yeah, that's the main reason why people would want to increase. Now for a female, depending on your goals, a female could potentially get away with just using an oral and do just fine. Back when I started competing, a lot of females only used like 5 milligrams of Anavar, and that was their cycle,
Most females,
that's the only one that I actually know when you mention it, but like I know what you're talking about. That
most one seems females that I do know now that's pretty much still only what they do.
Okay.
So in the local scene around here, it's very unusual to see females do much more than that. And if they do, they don't talk about it, which could be definitely another thing for sure. But
they should. Yeah. I like the honesty. I think keeps everybody in check, and there's nothing wrong with it. I like that people are starting to become a little bit more like open with it.
All right. Another question. Females that have breast implants, should they not be considered natural and not be allowed to compete on a natural show?
That's a good question.
I think like a breast implant.
If you were stepping on stage at a natural show with breast implants, would you be still considered natural?
Yeah, I think so.
What if I injected oil into my biceps? Could I compete in a natural? Could I compete naturally?
Yeah, but that's what is like when I don't think when I walk on stage they're judging my tits. You know what I mean? I think they're looking at everything else.
No, they're not.
I don't think,
okay, no, fair.
Having a chest helps keep the feminine body in check, which is kind of, they want women to look like females, but I don't see like a woman having breast implants. Like, I'm not going to go up on stage and be like, oh, she beat me because she's got fake tits. Like, it just, I don't know. I feel like I feel like a BBL would be more like in wellness or something. They beat me because they had a bigger butt, and they had a bigger butt because they had it surgically enhanced. I feel like breast implants. I don't know. I feel like
I see where they're coming from, though.
I see that point. I see your point too, and I see both sides.
I see. Well, they're just asking the question, right? They're asking the question. They're just asking what is what does natural mean? I guess is what they're
I think
asking, right?
that might be
Where
it.
is it defined?
Where's the line at?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
But if
I
you're not
mean,
being judged on that particular body part, then does it really matter?
I think
I feel
that
like
boobs do matter. I do think
they,
that boobs matter. I'll say this, that it's not that women are being judged by the size of their breasts, but we're all being judged by how does our silhouette, how does our overall shape fit into what we believe is the ideal version of this physique that we're supposed to see. So if you were to say take bikini for instance, bikini is definitely like I've known girls who've done really well who have small boobs, and then they end up getting breast implants because they want to take it further and they feel like that's what they have to do. I mean, if you look at it, if you want to fit in, if you want to, because that's what we're trying to do, right? Is
Yep.
we're trying to be like the best version. It's interesting because women are then faced with a big situation. If they don't have big boobs, then it's like, well, how am I? What if you're the only girl that doesn't have big boobs, and then there's 9 other women that all do, and you guys all compare the same? If I'll tell you what, I feel like if it was 2 women that were exactly the same, exactly 100% identical, except for one of them had the boobs and one of them didn't, I feel like the judges would go with the girl that had the boobs. I feel like they would.
interesting. I find that interesting. I feel like women only
Yeah,
got them
I
because
feel like they
now
would.
you lose them. You're like, oh, I want to have,
That they what?
Oh, when you lean out, you lose them, and I figured people would just get them because they missed having them. They didn't feel feminine anymore. I mean, if I
Yeah.
lost to somebody because they had breast implants, I don't think I would lose a wink of sleep over that.
Yeah, cool. Well, good.
It's kind of like hair too. It's kind of like, and it depends on the division because, like if it's female bodybuilding, I don't think it's as important. But
True.
as you get into the smaller divisions, like, because if you look at bikini again, I mean, or we'll say wellness, there's
Well,
an element of beauty attached to that. So let's take 2 women that look identical head to toe once again, but this time one of them has really good hair and the other one has a really shitty haircut.
right.
They're going to pick the woman with the really good hair.
They probably, yeah,
It's
they
just,
would.
and that's the way I see it. I think they're just going to go for what they think is that ideal standard, and that but that said, I don't think that we should be limited. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Yeah,
if
I
you have
agree
small
with that.
boobs, you should still kick ass. You can still go out and kick ass
Oh,
and do everything you can and see how far you can take it. Who knows? I would love to see a bikini competitor without fake boobs get in there and smash it and go all the way to the Olympia and win. Like, to me, that would be
that would
exciting
be
to see that it
yeah.
could be done.
There we go. Maybe I'll start doing bikini instead of figure. Be that person.
No, don't do it.
I don't think so. My coaches would
But-
kill me if they see
yeah.
this. They'd be like, "You what? Excuse me."
But no, that would be amazing. Like, that would be wonderful to see that, right? Just so it doesn't have to be something that females have to stress about if they don't really want to do it, but they want to do and move up and do well.
Yeah,
It's
and I've known so many girls that have had issues with their breast implants too, like problems with them or dealing with pain long term, and they can't train properly, just all sorts of stuff. Or, man, down the road having to get them removed. It's a big thing to consider, and I think a lot of girls are just like, hey, I'm just gonna get it done. Don't put any more thought into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes down to how big do you want your career. Like, if that's your career and like getting breast implants is going to get you that big fat win, then maybe it's a good investment.
I love how that comment just triggered you so quick right off the bat. That was that was great. But then we got over it. We could talk. So that was awesome. That was fun. That was.
I tend to bark.
No, that was awesome. It was great. All right, let's see. For you, Scott, what someone's wondering about your calf training.
Oh man, you don't even want to know.
Like
You don't even want to know.
Scott has ridiculous calves, and I'm not sure if you've scrolled through his Instagram or not. It's just like calf picture after calf picture. It's crazy.
It is not. It is not.
Can I have some?
You'd have to scroll pretty far. You'd have to scroll pretty far. I don't do any calf training, honestly. Occasionally I will, but honestly, for me, it's just been a matter of like every show, my calves would get better and better just simply by doing cardio. Like as I do cardio, as I walk, they just improve. I was looking to see if I could find a picture here to drop in. I don't think I have one offhand that I could just easily pull up. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like honestly, I'll tell you the truth. It's something that like I'm not really excited when people are like, "Oh man, your calves are crazy," because it's the only body part that I never had to work on. And in fact,
you're just like
that, like when my I was like, yeah, what about my shoulders? You know, what about my back? I just put a lot of muscle in my back. You know what I mean?
Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, I've had the most calf growth after following Dusty's DC plan with a lot of extreme stretching and holds in the stretch position.
Yeah, you saw a big difference with that.
Yeah,
huh?
I noticed it. I've noticed a crazy difference within probably about 4 or 5 months of it. It was like a significant amount where people were actually like mentioning or commenting on that while I was like walking around in the summertime in shorts. And I was like, this is so weird. But
so how frequently were you training them for that at that time?
It would be every second day.
Okay.
I would be hitting calves, and it would be rotating through 3 or 4 different exercises. But every exercise would have like 3 sets of 20, but every rep would take 5 to 10 seconds. So I would go down into the hole and stretch for a count, like a 3 or 4 count, then come back up, contraction, go back down in the hole, real stretch for 3 or 4 count. Yeah. But like Dusty's 3 or 4 count isn't seconds. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So that's how I'd always start my workouts with calves. Never put it at the end because I just wouldn't do it.
I've heard people say that before.
I always got to start with calves. I
start doing that myself. Speak the devil.
Right. Yeah. So like sitting there and like in that strength or the stretch position is probably optimal. Because I found, and I would take a look at like you go through your whole day and your calves are what move you throughout your day, right? But when you're walking, you're only walking in like the half rep range. So you're not at full contraction. Right. You're not a full contraction and you're not a full stretch. So you want to make sure when you're training, you're going to get into that full stretch up into the full contraction. If you're just doing that half rep ranges, that's what you've been doing the whole day, thousands of times over. Why would your calves grow? So
I also love that you're taking your time with it too. It kind of really lets your brain be aware of every fibrous piece of tissue in your calf, all the way up and all the way down. I train my hamstrings in a very similar way. Slow.
Good for the I think that's a great way too. It makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, getting that. And that's what I've told people too, is to get the full stretch and the frequency. I think that's a big part of it. I think I can tell you this, I think the biggest mistake I've seen people make is they just bounce them. You look at anybody who's training calves and they load that thing up with a ton of plates and then it's just boom, 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 and they're like, okay, I'm done, and really it was just like momentum,
Yeah, I don't think they thought about a single movement that they just did. I don't think they thought about it at all.
Yeah, the connection isn't there. Yeah. And I think you really have to, with calves, you really have to like fucking go at it. They gotta burn. You gotta push them until you literally like you stop because it hurts, and past that. Yeah. Right.
Well, you can't get past the half rep range because it's just the muscle's just so swollen you just can't get it any farther.
Yeah. Here you go.
Yeah. I know John Meadows was obsessed with tibialis training on top of
Oh,
it,
I
like
wish
the
we
front
had.
of the leg.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, you could
You know,
throw
he said
it.
he thought that made a difference for him.
I've seen some
Hmm.
machines that do that, but you could. I think you could throw a dumbbell in between your feet and like hang off a bench or something, and
Yeah,
do like a dumbbell raise with your feet locked around one.
Like a point
I could see
flex
that.
situation?
Yeah, you would hang. You
Yeah, I
you
could see that.
you grip your. You take your feet and put a dumbbell on the
Right.
handle, and you're bringing the dumbbell up and
Hmm.
squeezing your. So that's the only.
I could see that. You ever do dumbbell hamstring curls?
Theirs are
Yes, they
horrible.
are tricky.
Why are they
Oh,
so
they're
hard?
oh man, my adductors, they get fried from those things
I don't
too.
understand why that's so hard compared to a machine. It is silly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like a
It's hard
home
to
gym
get into
move.
it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's really good though.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Someone else wants to know, Scott, what your favorite Disney movie is.
Oh God, do they know who I am?
Right?
Do they know who I am? Because if they do, they know I don't watch movies.
It's like maybe not then.
I do remember when I was a kid, we went to go see Bambi. It was not like the original release. This is a few years ago, but
It's
not
like,
that many years
holy,
ago.
okay. It had a re-release, I hope.
Bambi's a good one though. That's a good one.
It was at like a local theater, a small theater, and they were doing like a double feature in the afternoon for kids that were out of school. And my mom took me and my sister there, and I remember crying at the end of that one. So
It's like
I remember,
you,
I remember
Yeah.
what happened.
you
Bambi got
remember the
shot or
trauma of
something.
of Disney, not,
Yeah,
not the actual
I remember.
movie.
I remember crying at that. Yeah,
That was a sad one, eh? Fox and a
yeah, it
half.
really was. It really
I think
was.
almost all the Disneys are pretty messed up and a little sad in some ways.
Beats the softness out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
What else you got for us, Josh?
Oh man, I think we pretty much covered everything here. Let's
Cool.
see. Yeah, that was silly one was the last one there, buddy.
Good. All right. That was a good one then. That was a good one to end on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I was
was.
looking
Now
for
I'm
a
gonna go
cast
watch
picture.
Bambi.
I couldn't find it, but I wanted to show you guys this. This was my 6 months of back training. I told
Yeah.
you guys, like, I figured some shit out,
Oh,
right?
let's see it.
And this is, so let's see if I can put this in a way that you guys, I gotta make
Oh,
it smaller here.
I can already kind of
Let's
see
see,
the
still
heat out
smaller.
back. Look
There
at
we
your
go.
lats.
So yeah, this was
That's
6
Look at your
months.
delt.
6 months.
6 months of
Holy.
training, and I didn't increase the gear or anything. I was running gear. I was running 600 milligrams a test, but that's like, I'm a guy in my 40s, so I ran a lot more than that in my days. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
yes.
It's like I've run some
So
heavy
that's
cycles years ago,
that's not a heck of a lot.
and this
Then
is
for
like in food. I was just eating like average standard food. I'll tell you what, that this is truly the result of stepping back and thinking differently about my training. And it was interesting
that's
because when
wild.
I started discovering like some new shit, I started getting like these messages would come up, or like my Facebook memories would come up. And I mean, I used to train with a guy named Shelby Starnes here in Detroit, who was known as being like a real hardcore guy back in the day, a decade ago. And he was friends with John Meadows. John wrote all of like, this is before John did like, this was like Mountain Dog 1.0.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Where John would write down his workout in great detail, whatever he did that day, and he would email it off to a handful of friends. And one of those friends was Shelby. And so we were doing John's back workouts every Wednesday at Detroit Powerhouse here in Michigan. And man, some of these workouts would be like 2.5 hours long.
Oh wow.
And I did this for 5 years with him. I'd be driving home, and like my arms would be spasming on the wheel. You know what I mean?
Right.
My lat would be locking up in traffic. And I just felt like I was going to die. Right. And it wasn't until I figured out, like I started seeing these videos coming up from that time in my Facebook memories, and I could see everything I was doing wrong. So I was training with a guy who was known as being a really intense dude. He was a pro in the 212.
Okay.
He was growing. Other training partner was growing. I mean, I grew, but I never developed my back the way I freaking wanted it to be. And finally, it was a matter of stepping back and retooling the movement. A big part of that was getting a full stretch, you know. A big part of it was that I wasn't allowing myself to get that full stretch at the, you know, bottom or top of the movement.
So you were stuck like kind of like halfway, going through the motion halfway, or?
It's not even that, Josh. It was like the last 2 inches, or the last inch.
Just that extra. Okay.
That extra little bit. And what I started doing is I would like, so when I guess I'd encourage anybody at home. This is the reason I wanted to bring it up. I wanted to share this with your audience, that
for sure,
if you feel like your back isn't growing the way you want it to, when you're doing a pull down next time you're at the gym, when you get up to the top of that rep, see if there's any tension left in that. I want you to basically just dangle there. Like, imagine if you were hanging off a bridge, you know, just hanging there, holding on, just with your grip, hanging on by dear life. Use straps, by the way.
Okay.
And make sure that you begin each and every rep from that position. You'll find that the weight's going to be a lot harder. You'll find that you're going to take the bicep out of it, and you'll have the opportunity to begin each rep by activating the lat first. That was one of the keys that Big Dave Smith told me with my chest training. The reason he wanted me to go all the way down is it takes the shoulder out. It takes the tricep out. It forces you to begin the compound movement with the pec only. And in this case, we're going to begin that movement with the lat. If we're doing a compound movement, we can't help but have all these other body parts that are going to engage, and they're going to help. It's just part of what we do.
Right.
But if you can ensure that you engage first with the target muscle, you're going to be off to a head start. And that was one of the things I did, man. And I'd say that was a big part of what helped me to make that transformation in 6 months.
That's so.
It's a good piece of advice.
So, like,
I just figured I'd share something useful, hopefully.
Yeah. I always tell the newbies at the gym, or the younger people at the gym, it's not how much you lift, it's about how you lift. And then once you get how you lift down, then it is about how much you lift at the end of the day. But yeah, you got to make sure you're hitting those reps and you're hitting everything exactly how you need it to. It's just so important. I feel like the side lateral raises, you're talking about the top delts. I see a lot of people do their side lateral raises for their deltoids in lots of interesting ways.
I think that's one of the
it's a tough one for people to hit.
That is one of the most commonly like worst exercises for some people that I think a lot of people struggle with. You think it's just raising your arm up to the side. That sounds so simple, but it's not quite.
I always try to imagine like you're getting quartered, like you got a horse tied to each wrist.
That's great.
And they're going to tear your arms off. Every time you lift up your arm, it's getting pulled like out of your body. You should feel it like right in the bottom of your delt, all the way, the whole kit caboodle.
Yeah. Another good one I've heard is a client of mine, bikini competitor, who she ended up growing her delts in a great way. She had said what worked for her was trying to imagine touching the walls, you know, because that's the thing. A lot of people, they're going up, you know, with that movement. We're getting traps engaging. We're getting a lot of other stuff engaging. But think about going out, not up. And you don't have to bring the dumbbell. Let me try to get into the right here. You don't have to bring the dumbbell up like this. You know what I mean? We're just, in fact, you can even bring it to like here. I'm okay with that. Like, that's okay if you go that high, if you're activating, you know, with the delt.
Yeah, 100%. Out to touch the walls. That's a great way to put it. That's literally perfect. Yeah, and also, don't pick.
I like the quartered one. Yeah.
Pardon? Sorry?
I like the quartered one though. And you're the quartered one, that's good. And you're a natural, so it makes sense that you figured something out that works for you for that movement, because your delts are already like a standout body part for you.
Yeah, shoulders and back are my
your back is good too.
Yeah. I'll see if I can pull something up here. I'll show you what kind of transpired over COVID and me kind of like learning how to learning how to rest a little bit, and then also kind of figuring out my own range of motion, in which actually going through Dusty's program, and Dusty helped me kind of work on that. Screen share.
I kind of like the end of this. It's really wholesome, talking about all of our little mistakes and our, what I wish we would have done this. Now we get to see yours.
Can you see that there?
Make it bigger.
Blow it up. There you go.
So we're going from.
Oh yeah, dude.
So we're going from.
Dude, your glutes are so peeled in that middle picture. They've got that like diamond shape to them.
Right.
Yeah, they're the hams.
So we're going from like.
You make a really good middleweight, man.
Yeah.
You make a good middleweight. I see why you want to stay there.
Thanks. So we're going from like left to right. Left is this year. The middle is 22. And the green shorts, the far right is 2019. So big change. Yeah, big changes from that, right?
Your lats. How much weight did you gain from that? Between the two stage shows, like how much heavier were you?
16 pounds.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So
that's freaking awesome.
Between the two stage shows. 8.
Okay,
that was about that was a year difference.
Yeah, that's still incredible, dude.
So 16 between
you're back.
You've
got like the Ronnie Coleman. You got like the Ronnie Coleman lat hang now.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, it's juicy.
That was but the thing was that was intentional. After competing in 2022, I said I need to bring my lower lats up, and that was intentional. That whole year, I spent training my lower lats with like.
Did you have a favorite workout for
that? Supinated barbell rows.
Okay.
Were really good.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how people tell you like, well, you can't train your lower lats; they're just part of the muscle, part of the lat.
Right there.
Maybe you can't, but yeah, exactly. But you can. Maybe you can't, but you can.
Right.
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
You can train your lat. I feel like you can target the different places. Like I feel like a lat pull down or pull ups and all those other ones get like nice and get up here, but like those lower ones, I find like the rows, any of those bent over movements, anything that's like low trap lat kind of area.
But I also have to contribute to like I've also oddly developed a really, really good mind muscle connection with my back.
Yeah.
Which helps.
That's the critical thing, man. Right? I think that's what I was talking about too, is feeling the muscle. That's what it took for me, was get that stretch that I could feel the contraction where I needed it. That's huge, man.
Right.
Sometimes when I lift really heavy, I can't think about the muscle because I just think about how heavy the weight is. Sometimes before I like to up my weights and push myself, I like to have a reasonable weight that I'm pushing myself that's tough. But I want to be able to feel that muscle just flambeing under the skin. And then once I can get the flambe, then I'll like, okay.
That's when you start. That's when you can add the weight on. Once you start learning how to feel it, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to bury. You could bury yourself under a heavy squat or heavy leg press, and those guys have are little guys with little legs are leg pressing 1,000 pounds. Then there's guys with huge legs are like dying under like 720, or 580. There's a reason why. Right. Because we can, the mind muscle connections there, we're firing all of our cylinders. Like we're really kind of focusing and driving with the quads instead of like pushing with everything and your lower back.
Right. Yeah. Right. You actually get a chance to feel the muscle that's actually going to push you up out of your squat, like your hamstrings, your adductors, your quads. Like there's so many muscles working coherently there. And depending on how you squat, like I had a shitty squat for years. Like I couldn't fucking squat. I started doing CrossFit and a bunch of other like
Well, that's why.
chiropractors and mobility work to work on my squats because my squats were just garbage. My form was garbage. Yeah, there's so many, and I didn't realize like my hamstrings weren't kicking in at all for my squats. Different story now, but
Yeah. Anyway, now that everyone saw my glutes, we can leave it there.
Yes.
we'll
I feel
put a
completed
picture of
now.
your
Okay.
glutes and
Yeah.
fade out.
The fade out.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome, Scott. Thanks very,
nice
very
meeting
much
you.
for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's great to talk to both of you guys, and this was a lot of fun. So thank you
yeah,
very much.
super-
And I hope
I feel
people
very-
listening enjoyed it too.
I feel very honored that
Me too.
you came along this journey with us. It's super great.
Oh man, it's
And
my pleasure.
yeah, thank you. And before we go, people that stuck around, don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell. I thought you were going to jump in on that one.
I didn't want to get in your
Sure,
way,
we're
man. I saw you
probably
doing your
now.
thing. And I got to tell you too, Josh, from the minute I met you, I was just telling my wife this earlier. I felt like I knew you.
Oh, cool.
If that sounds weird, something about you, your personality. I knew. I'm like, well, I'm just meeting this guy,
Yeah.
and we were talking and stuff. But I was like, I just felt like you're somebody that I've known for a long time. So it was really cool. You have a good energy, and I really love
Appreciate that.
your passion for bodybuilding. So that's why I'm excited to be here, man. And I love amateur bodybuilding too. You know, I think that I don't care. You don't have to be a guy who's going to the Olympia, you know, to be passionate.
No.
In fact, man, I know a lot of people, including myself, where like the Michigan State Championships can be an Olympia for you. You know what I mean? And being able to go to national shows and all that stuff, it's like it's just such an honor to be able to do what we do, you know. And I know that you feel that same way, and so I respect that a ton, man, in you.
Thanks, brother. That's so nice. Appreciate that.
I love that.
And it's awesome to see, Caroline, your entrance into this this wild thing called bodybuilding. You're going to learn so much from it, and it's cool to see your passion for it and see that you're excited to learn. I mean,
Oh
you're going
yeah.
to learn. There's a lot to it. You know, it'll be an awesome process. I'll be excited to watch that.
Yeah, every time I think I'm woke, I'll just get a little bit more
Yeah.
with the world. You know what? I just like that I've only got like a year max under my belt, and I just love that everybody kind of treats me and talks to me like as if I've been doing it for longer. I just like that I've kind of been given the same respect, and that I'm not like, oh, you're just new, it's fine. I love that. It makes me feel like
That's cool.
all that hard work was, you know, I'm in on that circle now. I
absolutely.
didn't think I would be. I thought I had to be like friends or compete more or win more to be even registered as somebody that, you know, have their opinion valued. So I love that. I was wrong. It's valued even with little knowledge that I have.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear.